Just before our season, had the pleasure to spend some time with Dave. And to be honest with you, I was real thrilled to see his new approach of bringing the local flavor back to the Tennessean and more of the hometown approach to his coverage, and I'm sure he'll touch base on that. But during his 11 months in Nashville, he has purposely made an effort to get out and meet and greet as many people throughout the community, and I'm one of them, and I appreciated his time. Last month, the Associated Press Editors Association awarded the Tennessean Sports Section 8 national awards, including being named one of the top 20 daily and top 20 Sunday sports sections in the country. That's pretty impressive, folks. Several staff members, including columnist David Clymer and Titans writer Jim Wyatt, were also honored among the nation's best at what they do. In total, those 8 awards were more than the Tennessean had won collectively in the past 20 years combined. So he's really turning this thing around. And the first section, the first such awards of that's the first awards they've received in the last decade. So Dave has previously worked for newspapers in Los Angeles, New York, Baltimore, in the Washington area, and Charlotte markets. He spent 30-some years growing up in the Baltimore area. He's a huge Baltimore Orioles fan, idolized Hall of Famers Brooks Robinson and Jim Palmer, and he has a couple of lovely children that are here settling in, and I think you want to stay here for quite some time. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's Dave. Thank you.
Surprised you applauded first. Usually they applaud at the end. You might want to throw me out. Before I start, George, can you come up and help me with something real quick? No, it's an easy task. I actually met George at a Chamber of Commerce event when I first came to town, and he and Bo Roberts got in a big argument whether I should give Tennessee more coverage or Vanderbilt more coverage, blah, 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 blah. They went on and on and on, dominated the meeting for a while. Surprise, surprise, I know. And I immediately just said, look, let's just settle it for lunch, and we'll settle it at lunch sometime. And he was gracious enough to invite me to City Club, I think like the very next week. And he said, hey, anything I can do, let me know. So, George, here are all my business cards. Can you give one to everybody? Unfortunately, if you don't want one, you can turn it down. I think I only brought about 50 with me. And, I only brought 50 cards with me, and I think there's about 100 of you out there, so I am honored that there are so many people here. My hat's off already to M. M already grabbed me before I walked in the building. He doesn't need a card because he already grabbed one. So after I speak today, if any of you have a moment you want me to spend with any other service group or anything you're with, please let me know. I'm more than happy to do so, or anything at all. And now you have the business card, and when I finish here, if there's any stories, anything out there you think we're missing, call me. Please let me know, okay? Now to the program. How much time do I have? 20 minutes. Okay. 6 minutes? 6 weeks. But I have a script written out, but I'll just go through it. But seriously, I want to thank you all for inviting me today. I appreciate it tremendously. George called me about 2 months ago, and I don't think I could make the first speaking engagement, but I'm more than happy to come out and talk to folks. I always welcome the opportunity to speak about my passion, which obviously is journalism. Unfortunately, I'm sorry if there's anyone out there who's already heard me speak, because I have been out and about a lot. But the bottom line is I'll go through this, my goal is to get this Tennessean sports coverage back to its base. And what I mean by that, I reviewed a lot of the papers of the Tennessean before I accepted this job. And to me, the Tennessean sports section kind of lost its way in the last 20 years. And it came with, and I mean no disrespect, I've had the same conversation with the Predators folks who, call this building their home. We're not going to stop covering the Predators. We're not going to stop covering the Titans, et cetera, et cetera. But when those teams came to town, we kind of forgot who we were. I mean, we're the Tennessean. And we forgot that, we're we're part of the local fabric of this great city of, I used to say yours when I first started doing this, but of ours. And we need to get back to being that part. It's been my #1 priority in the last 12 months to become part of that community and make the Tennessean sports section part of that community. I've been in town now for 50 weeks. I came to town the very beginning of May a year ago. And today is the 52nd time I've been out meeting folks. So I've been busy. I've had lunch one-on-one with Mayor Dean. I've spoken to other service groups. I've had dinner with Coach Franklin. In fact, when we last had dinner about 2 weeks ago over at Bricktops, I joked with him that I don't know which one of us has been out trying to shake hands, get more people to grab our attention, whether it's him or me. So that's been the #1 goal. Like I said, George was gracious. I met with him like the first month I was in town. He gave me a lot of good story ideas, and he planted the seed that the Tennessean needs to be the city of Nashville and who we are. It doesn't mean we're going to forget the University of Tennessee. Those of you Vols fans out there, don't worry about that, et cetera, et cetera. But we need to be more who we are. So how are we doing that? I mean, all these meetings and the conversations I've had with folks, people raising their hands after we've talked, et cetera, I take those seeds and go back and do things. Just little things. Like, I don't know how many of you have even noticed. We've started this thing about 4 months ago. It's called like a little mid-state update that's on page 2. It basically updates people what they're doing now. And, I've been picking on George today, but George planted that seed with me when we met with him. And it's true, the Tennessean forgets folks, once they go along, once they leave the high school arena or the college arena, but we should be updating them. I met Chelsea briefly this morning. Chelsea, did you grow up here? No. Okay. Well, you don't count then. I can't use you. Because after I found out you went to Oklahoma State, it's like I even wrote it down. It's like, well, I need one of my interns to look you up. But I mean, from that to, we increased our coverage tremendously on high school sports last fall by having a brand new section come out on Saturdays, and actually on Fridays too, to preview the games, then on Saturday mornings. Then we increased our coverage of Vanderbilt and UT and other college football programs on Sundays with a different section. And then on Monday, we increased our coverage of the Titans. And we've expanded it to now we have a weekly page dedicated to the Predators, for example, that had been done probably in years or decades. And Brad can tell you the last time we actually had a sounds page. I don't know if they ever have, but we sat down and we talked, and he asked what I could do for him, and we're putting out a weekly sounds page. And I'm not going to ever lie to any of you all. I can't. With my staffing, I can't have Nick Cole at every game, and he understands that, but we're going to give the Sounds more coverage than they have in the past. I mean, they are who we are, and they deserve it. I recently added a freelance golf writer. I just sent David Clymer to the Masters. He hadn't been to the Masters in many, many years. It was a great Masters to be at, that's for sure. And a lot of the moves have been positive. I've gotten a lot of calls, and it doesn't surprise me. When I first came to town, I wrote a column and said, hey, introducing myself, how can I help, blah, blah, blah. And I got more than 500 emails that first month. So it just proves how passionate sports fans are in this city. I got more than 150 phone calls. I make it a personal mission, to respond to each and every person who either calls me or emails me. We started, someone somewhere said, hey, there are a lot of notes that we send you guys and they never get in the paper. And I personally witnessed that our first couple months I was there. We were getting things mailed to us and they were tossing it in the trash can. So I go, how many of you guys know Mike Organ? Do you guys know Mike Organ? Any of you guys? He's one of our writers, born and raised here, been here for a long time. I said, Mike, you're now going to become my personal trash can. And now he writes a column every Sunday. If you pick up the Tennessean Sunday, take a look at it. It's on page 2 every Sunday. But it's just like anything and everything, that just little tidbits going around town, around the city, around the mid-state. And again, that's who we should be, and that's what we are, and that's who we will continue to be. I lost my place. But what scares me is journalism today isn't what it used to be when we were all kids. It scares me. I recently spoke to 500 students at Lipscomb University, aspiring journalists, and I guarantee you more of those kids in that crowd that day went home that night and watch TMZ or something like that instead of picking up their newspaper or watching CNN. And that's what scares me the most. How many of you all actually how many of you have cable or satellite TV in your house? I mean, everyone, right? All right. How many of you had it when we were kids? You did not. Oh, wait, you're young. Yes, you did. I apologize. That didn't work out so well, did it? Okay. All right. Yeah, how many have a cell phone in your pocket? Okay. You pay what for the cell phone? I don't pay anything because Connect gives it to me for free, thank God. But no, seriously, bills for your kids, I mean, your phone bills are $50, $100, $200 a month when you add everything together, right? Right? And that satellite TV, I mean, it went, okay, he did have it when he was a kid, but when he was a kid, he paid like $12 a month. Now it costs upwards of $100 a month, right? How many of you have gone to a convenience store or the grocery store in the last month and bought a bottle of water, right? We didn't do that when we were kids. It was always free. Why are you buying water, right? Well, where I'm headed with all this is, you know, people are upset these days that, hey, the Tennesseans raised their rates. You have to buy a subscription to go online to read things. Yeah, you do. But the bottom line is that subscription costs 38 cents a day, but people complain about it. But to me, it's the fabric of our community. It's where you're going to get your news of what's happening, whether it's news and or sports, et cetera, et cetera. You can't get that sports coverage anywhere else for 38 cents a day. You said George is a member here. If he was here, I'd apologize to him because he's been trying to get me on his radio program. I just haven't had the time. But you can't get the news that my staff gives you, my sports staff, anywhere else. We still have the largest sports staff in the state to give multimedia coverage, et cetera, et cetera. This summer we're going to launch, you know, and everything's going multimedia. This summer we're going to launch a new website dedicated to Middle Tennessee colleges. You know, Vanderbilt gets its coverage, UT gets its coverage, but one of the things I've realized when I've been out talking with the Belmonts and the Lipscombs and the Trevecas and the Cumberlands and the TSUs, et cetera, you know, this paper has forgotten about them. So one of my missions is to create a website dedicated to their sporting events. So I'm not done. This, I apologize tremendously. I do, seriously, I apologize. You know one thing I learned? Do you know this? Do you know where Derek Jeter's dad went to school? Fisk, yeah, I learned that when I've been here, but during one of my lectures, et cetera, et cetera. Where was I? God, you stumped me. No, but seriously, I mean, you know, a lot of the questions I get is, so where are newspapers headed? You know, so many newspapers some have folded, some have gone totally web completely. Some newspapers, you know, even close to us here in the South, have gone to 3 days a week. I can't speak for Carol Hudler, our publisher, whom I think is a wonderful, wonderful leader. And I'm not saying that because she's my boss. She is. She's incredible. But we're not looking to change anytime soon, because I do get that question from time to time. But what will most likely change is we will continue to evolve our multimedia efforts to have more things online as generations younger than us get younger. I mean, that is where we're going to the news, but we need to have a credible news source that they can go to, not a news source like TMZ or things like that. And I was going with George Plaster, sort of said, not talk radio, sports, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we need to be credible. You know, I really worry. I'm sure a lot of you guys have read all the stories we've written about DCS and meningitis and things like that. If newspapers go away, I'm very, very fearful who's going to dig those stories up? Who's going to be the watchdog for this community? And if newspapers go away, I venture to guess that a lot of things happening, you know, will never be heard or never be read or never be seen. But if I can continue, if I can get my focus back here to sports, I would like to just point out that we're making strides. We're not there yet. We're not even the first base, as I keep telling my staff. There's a lot of things we need to do. But I encourage you, if you have any ideas for changes things you'd like to see in our sports section, something you absolutely hate, call me. Let me know. I'll be happy to talk to any of you individually or other groups. It's not a problem. And that's in a nutshell what I was going to say. I know we're running out of time, right? Oh, I still have 10 minutes. What questions do you have? Boom, boom, boom.
What part of your budget comes from sales versus advertising?
You mean circulation-wise, like? It's probably 80-20, something like that. It did increase in circulation, our budget last year when they raised the rates. I'm not going to lie to you. It did go up. But we needed it because the advertising rates have dropped. Yes, George?
Two, please. With the unfortunate revelation about the situation financially with the symphony, have you heard any inkling of Mayor Dean and the Metro Council and the National Sports Authority finally readdressing the 10 acres at the old thermal site for the sounds? Is that a possibility? And how does Nashville compare, Dave, with Baltimore, for instance, in sports-wise?
Well, I grew up in Baltimore. I'll come back to the symphony question in a second. I grew up in Baltimore, was there until I was 35, then I moved away. And I was a sports editor in New Haven, Connecticut, but we covered the New York City market. And then I moved to LA, where I once had a sports staff of 43 people at in the newspaper in Riverside, California. We were the only newspaper in the country that was covering 3 Major League Baseball teams, the Lakers, I mean, anything you can imagine in LA and San Diego. When I left last spring, I had a sports staff of 8 because the economy in California had dropped so much. But getting back to your question, George, the base here is just so passionate. They're passionate, but they're not. It's like you and Bo that day. I mean, you guys are friends, you know what I mean? But you have your passionate basis and what you care about. But in Baltimore, New York, and not so much LA, the people aren't as nice as they are here. They certainly are. I'm amazed. I mean, I never, ever envisioned moving to Nashville. I've told people that. Never in a million years. Until my editor from California became the editor of this paper a year ago December, a lady by the name of Maria Deverain. If you haven't met her, you need to meet her. She's a great journalist. I mean, she's leading a lot of this DCS stuff and stuff like that. But she called me and said, Dave, do you want to move back east? I'm like, to Nashville? Are you nuts? You know, so I flew out here stealthily because she wasn't allowed to hire anybody from her old paper for like 90 days. So I flew out here like day 91, and I looked around and I talked to a lot of people. And God, this is a great place to live and to raise a family. And the more research I did, it's a great place to raise a family. And I moved here. We decided to rent a house for the first year to make sure we made the right decision. Well, about 3 months after we were renting that house, we signed the year lease. I decided to build a house. I plan to retire here. Yeah, unfortunately, the house is about 2 months behind schedule, so I am mad if there are any builders out there. I won't tell you which builder it is, but they're making me upset. But, I mean, the bottom line is, George, is just people here are just so passionate for their sports, but to me, they handle it the right way. They really, really do. Now, going back to the symphony question, well, the baseball question, Mayor Dean and I sat down one-on-one at, it's a restaurant over in East Nashville, the Boston, what is it? Yeah, Battered Fried, for about an hour and a half, right before I met with you, so it was about 2 months ago. And I literally purposely met with him off the record for about an hour and a half before I met with Brad. And we talked about the sounds, and I think he definitely has an idea of where he would like the sounds to wind up. But I don't think he's really ready and willing to talk about it publicly, so it wouldn't be fair for me to comment on it until after the Music City Center opens. After that point, and I've talked to Brad about this already, I really want to get Clymer and the Sounds and the mayor together in like an open town hall meeting type place and talk about all of this and where we're headed. And I'm hoping to make that happen the second half of this year.
Questions?